If you came to last year's United Way breakfast, you heard a startling account of how people in our community are struggling with hunger and its connection to obesity, and how access to healthy food in our communities could really change our neighborhoods. I want to show you just one of the ways that our community responded. Here to tell you about the Rainier Valley Eats program are Becca and Leika.
Good morning. And absolutely, as Annie was saying, here at Rainier Valley Eats, or RAVE as we like to call it, we're all about community. And when we talk about community, we're talking about food. And when we talk about food, we're talking about it in a holistic approach. We're talking about it from seed to stomach. So what we do is we're working with folks to grow, to share, to cook, and to eat their food together in communities. So when you start, you're literally planting the seed, and that's the growing aspect of things. We had the opportunity to work with students where they are, which was great. We're able to work in the Rainier Beach community at South Lake High School. South Lake High School is really a unique place. It's an alternative high school for students that have a lot of challenges and often don't fit in at other schools. What it does is it allows us to have a really unique opportunity to try programs like ours, like Growing Starts with students to learn new skills. What was interesting, the way that we started with these kids, was we asked them about their dreams. And that's something that we don't often do. These kids don't often get a chance to talk about their dreams and their hopes. We really honed in and talked about their dream jobs. And their dream jobs were anything from being entrepreneurs, selling custom kicks and handbags, to being football players. The football player in particular is kind of a shy, quiet young man named Rochelle, and I've learned over the years to pay attention to the quiet ones. And it was really interesting. As we kind of went through what their dream jobs were, we realized that it doesn't really matter what specifically they want to do, because they're all going to learn different skills through these different activities by us taking the time to work with them. So we started growing plant starts. We figured, these are a way to kind of gain new skills. And, planting the seeds, not that difficult. Taking care of the seeds is a whole nother story. That requires constant care. And for a lot of these students, coming to class was really an incredible challenge. But what they were realizing is if you don't come to class, your plants don't get watered and your seeds do not grow. And Rochelle really picked up on that. The first tray of seeds didn't germinate, and he was like, I really got to come to class. I got to make this thing happen. So he started coming to school every day, maybe not for all classes, but he was coming to grow his starts. And what he looked around at was that he was there to put in the time, so he started organizing his other students. And a lot of them took him up on his offer, and they coordinated a schedule to get those starts watered. Some of them didn't. The ones that were working with Rochelle to come to class and grow those starts, they really flourished. You could just see the magic happen when those seeds came up and germinated. The students that didn't participate, well, their seeds didn't do so well. But in the end, they all learned a valuable lesson, whether they had these amazing seeds or not, was that it takes everybody working together to make things grow, to make food grow. And that's really an amazing aspect of growing food together. Another aspect of seed to stomach is sharing food. And in the Rainier Beach neighborhood, one thing that is really difficult is access and availability to local, fresh, seasonal organic produce. So one of the things that we do at RAVE is we have something called a Good Food Bag, where we distribute weekly, local, seasonal, organic, fresh produce through a lot of our programs. So seed to stomach, we've talked about growing and we've talked about sharing, but let's talk about getting it into your stomach. And for that part, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Leika.
Thank you, Becca. So thank you all. We talk about growing food and how we engage the community in doing that, and then sharing food with these wonderful good food bags and getting all this local seasonal produce. But then the next question is, what do you do with all that produce? Do you know how to make it into a delicious meal? And that's really what we focus on, because no matter how much we know that this produce is good for people, if they don't eat it, then they're not gonna benefit. So we focus on cooking with our community as a way to make it so that it is a part of their life, and hopefully day after day after day. So we've started 2 different programs based on cooking with our community, and we focus on the seasonal produce. And one thing that we do, the style that we use is what we call intuitive cooking. So instead of using a recipe, we actually focus on what do we have at hand and how are we gonna make it taste delicious based on how we layer the flavors and how we put it together so that it really is something that we want to eat. And that's really important so that people eat the food. And so one of the things that we have here in the Northwest is we have root vegetables and leafy greens pretty much 9 months out of the year. So week after week, you have to find ways to make it interesting and have variety. And in fact, today for your breakfast, we had some greens that were grown on that farm where Rochelle ended up working, and that was one way that you can make these greens into a delicious meal. Thank you. So we found that working with young people is a really great place to start, because when you get young people to change their habits around eating, you really build them up for a life of success and health. And so we've started these after-school cooking clubs where we work with students, and again, using this intuitive cooking style, and we get them excited about all these different root vegetables and greens week after week. And so in our cooking programs, we hope to reach the kids and get them excited, but then we want them to take it home and actually do this with their families. And in fact, one of our students, Alex, she did exactly that. She was a student where, it was a little hard to get her to focus, especially in the context of her friends. But when she came into the kitchen and she had a task to actually make the food, she got really focused. She was really excited because, kids like to cook, but they love to eat. So when you get them in the place where they can actually cook their own food and eat, they get very, very excited. So one day we made kale chips. Anybody tried kale chips here? They're very delicious. And of course the students were met with a lot of apprehension, oh, what are we making? But as soon as we took it out of the oven and they tasted that familiar salty crunch, she was hooked. And Alex actually went home that day, made kale chips with her family, and her family got hooked. And they came to our community dinner the next week and joined us for a community meal. So we grow food, we share food, we cook, but the best thing of all is to come together and eat as a community. And so many of you probably know the benefits of a family meal, but when you put that in the context of a community meal, it's all those benefits on a larger scale. So we bring people together and cook, and we're able to share information and learn from each other on how to make this food taste so delicious. And that's really been a huge success for our program, is people teaching each other and learning from each other. So, not everybody gets inspired to cook new foods on their own, but when you do it with friends and neighbors, it makes it a lot more fun. You're willing to try new recipes, new foods that you've never had before, and that's what we do with our community dinners. And so we're able to reconnect people to where the food is grown, how we're sharing it, new ways of cooking it, and we can bring people together across all ages, all cultures around this common language of food. So I want to thank you so much for all your contributions and making these programs happen and having a successful way to get people to eat their leafy greens.
Thank you. Rave is such an incredible program. I have to tell you, it has really changed the way we think about food in our house and the way we've begun to eat. In fact, I actually got Dan to try some kale chips. I wish I had a picture of that. Obviously, Rave is dealing with the issue of hunger and not enough access to healthy food in our neighborhoods. But what's more amazing about Rave is it's rebuilding community. It's showing that we can work together, and with a great idea, great people, and some funding from United Way and our partners at Boeing and USDA, we can take on a big issue and do something about it.